I'm back with a new video about creepypastas, and this time I wanted to dabble into the ones you could definitely beat. There's actually way more ones you could beat versus ones you wouldn't survive against, so it only makes sense to make this video, and oh boy, am I hyped to be talking about creepypastas again. As I said in the previous creepypastas video, I love these stories and they used to keep me up at night. It wasn't just the unsettling stories, but the images and entities associated with them. In this video, we'll be taking a look at 7 creepypasta entities and I'll be explaining to you why you could definitely beat them. So if you end up enjoying the video, why not consider subscribing so you don't miss out on more of these kinds of videos. Check out my second channel, Soda Jump, where a friend and I get goofy playing video games and doing some IRL things linked in the description, and as usual, I'll have the links to what I talk about in the description too. As always, at the end of the video, I'll rate all of the creepypastas from least to most powerful. After all, anything can happen when you're faced with something like this, no matter how strong you are. Since you'd be able to beat it and many others, you may be left scathed after your encounter. Perhaps you'd be looking for some sort of compensation. These creepypasta entities definitely won't compensate you for any of that. That's where this video's sponsor, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, can assist you if you become their client. After all, when you're seriously hurt, your injury could be worth millions. They achieved significant verdicts in the past couple of months for victims involved in life-altering car crashes. For example, $12 million in Florida, 34 times the highest insurance offer, and $26 million in Philadelphia. That's 40 times the highest insurance offer. Bam! And the best part about this is that it's absolutely free unless you win. And it only takes a few minutes to see if you have a case. Morgan & Morgan is for the people. They'll fight to get you the money you deserve, if you become their client. And if you ever got seriously injured, your case could be worth millions and you're only a few clicks away from potentially changing your life. It's so easy. You can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/sunflower, found in the description, or by scanning the QR code on screen with your phone's camera. So, with all of that being said, let's take a look at creepypasta entities you could definitely beat. If we're gonna start anywhere, I feel like we have to start at Jeff the Killer, one of the most famous and well-known creepypastas out there. This thing kept me up at night for a while, and here's why. You would have seen him in the intro, and this is Jeff the Killer, the entity we see here. He has jet black, greasy hair, a ghastly pale face, soulless eyes with a sinister and jagged smile. It's such a haunting image, especially when you know the origin story behind it. Jeff, who was 13, moved to a new neighborhood with his brother Leo and their parents. On their first day of school, they're bullied by 3 boys, Randy, Keith, and Troy. Jeff beat them all up, with Leo taking the blame for it and being arrested. Jeff was understandably pretty upset about it, but the bullies were relentless and they attacked him at a house party. Jeff ends up killing one of them, but not before having bleach poured all over him and being lit on fire. During this, Jeff snapped. He was sent to hospital and wrapped in bandages. When he took them off, he was horribly disfigured. He laughed hysterically, loving his new appearance. However, the doctor thought that he was just high off painkillers and let him go home. Later that night, his mum found him carving a permanent smile into his face so he didn't have to put energy into smiling anymore. And he singed off his eyelids so he could always see his face. Jeff's mother went to his dad and told him that their son has gone insane and he needs to be put down. Jeff caught them and stabbed them to death. This woke up Leo, who was in the house being recently released after his arrest. Jeff told him to go back to sleep as he plunged a knife into him. Jeff would go on a rampage, killing those who refused to sleep at night, and thus, he called himself Jeff the Killer. And that's what makes this image even more haunting. Whoever took the photo would have been face to face with their demise. But you could definitely beat him. He's not some sort of supernatural entity that bends reality to his will. He's just a psychopath with a knife that knows how to skulk around really, really well. You know what beats knives 99% of the time? A gun? Utilize your 13th Amendment and keep your family safe. One well-placed bullet and you'd leave Jeff dead or crippled. But if you had to get into a close quarters combat scenario against him, it wouldn't be ideal. He's crafty and deadly, so any weapon that's longer than the knife he carries would be a huge advantage. And so would strength in numbers. With enough people overpowering him in any means, he'd be done for. But it would still be best to make sure that your house is secure enough for him not to be able to break in. Because if you're asleep, he'll kill someone without hesitation. Speaking of, you could actually try to fall back to sleep when he asks you to. It might work considering that he kills those who don't when he asks, but it would just mean that he'll go to the next person in the house to kill. Or he'll be back for you if you lied about going back to sleep. If you're the only person in the house, he might leave, or he won't. It's too unpredictable of a situation, but like I've already said, when you simplify things, he's just a guy with a knife. How am I able to describe a guy that looks like this as just a guy with a knife? Anyway, did you know that he does have a nemesis, Jane the Killer, a girl whose parents he killed and she swore to kill him for that. However, she hasn't been able to. Slender Man has also had his beefs with Jeff the Killer because he's just too insane to be controlled by Slender Man. Even Jeff's brother, Leor, becomes homicidal Leor after surviving Jeff's attacks and contemplates on whether or not he should kill Jeff. The latter two aren't seen as overly canon, but it's strange that no one's really brought a gun into the mix. Everyone just wants their one-on-one anime fight with knives, or in Slender Man's case, tentacles. That didn't come out as great as I thought it would, but either way, any sort of fighting back, especially in numbers, would mean that you could definitely beat Jeff the Killer. Just don't let him catch you off guard. And hey, sprinkle a bit of hope in there too that the local authorities just catch and or kill him instead. Because they should be able to. Also, I feel like it's only obligatory to mention that there's a hunt for the original Jeff the Killer image. There's been some big steps made over the years, and it's pretty cool to sit back and watch things unfold. I'll link a really good video by Gooseboost about it in the description, but there have been updates since that video's upload. Next up, we have to look at another absolute classic, Ben Drowned. Yet another creepypasta I lost hours of sleep to. The story behind a boy named Ben trapped within a copy of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64 starts off pretty simple but gets more convoluted as the story progresses. I can't count how many times I've talked about Ben Drowned on my channel, but I think it's like twice, maybe 3 times. Either way, our story begins in 2010 on 4chan's paranormal board and ends on YouTube in 2020. Someone known as Jaducible, aka Alex Hall, bought a strange looking copy of Majora's Mask from an old man in a garage sale. He played the game and was met with oddity after oddity thanks to the spirit of Ben trapped within the game cartridge. If you couldn't tell by his name, he was drowned. But by who? He toys with Jaducible and there's some big Moon Children cult that's revealed, and rituals and AI and worlds and yada yada yada. What's more important is Ben himself, who you could definitely beat. Ben takes the form of Link's Elegy of Emptiness statue and can manifest in the real world for a short time, tamper with electronics, cause paranoia, and manifest in dreams, among other things. That makes him pretty damn powerful as far as things go. Turning off the console and destroying the cartridge could be a very quick and easy way to beat Ben, and is definitely worth trying. Due to the fact that he can tamper with electronics, he might have some sort of ability to jump around from device to device. So catching him when he's doing that might be a bit difficult, and so would trying to resist his psychological influences. You see, throughout the story, people go missing and the cult is further established. You're telling me a cult that drowned a kid, put his soul into a copy of Majora's Mask, and has unleashed it onto the world wouldn't cause a nationwide hunt for the cult? What they're doing and Ben? If that's the case, then let professionals handle Ben, since he really could take over a lot of important technology. While that's happening, you need to go dark and turn off all electronic devices in your home and that you own, especially if they're connected to the internet or a wall socket. I don't think Ben would try to inhabit something like a Tamagotchi, but you can never be too safe. And this is all assuming that Ben would want to go AWOL and do all of this, which if you've read and watched the story, then you know this isn't exactly what happens. I mean, in a way, everything sort of just worked out in the end since, spoilers alert, Ben is given a new body which isn't really anything out of the ordinary for the series since potential inspirations from the Ghost in the Shell can be seen. And look, Ben even gives us a send-off after all's been done. Wow. So either way, he's been beaten. You could try to do it yourself and destroy the cartridge he's in before things get out of hand, let the authorities deal with him while you keep yourself safe, or just let the story play out, since, you know, the latter two don't require any effort on your behalf, unless you get yourself involved, of course. Sticking to video games, I feel like it only makes sense to talk about Herobrine. Fun fact, but this was the first creepypasta I was introduced to thanks to a friend and my kid's self-descent into a loss of sleep thanks to creepypastas. Good times, and you know what? You could definitely beat Herobrine. As the story goes, on July 31st, 2010, a Minecraft forum user, Flaky, posted a comment that looked to be copied from 4chan's video game board. This comment contained a story of a player encountering an entity with white eyes after listening to the 13 music disc. An instance of white eyes on YouTube was linked in the post showing a screenshot of a dark cave with white eyes in the bottom left corner. This video was posted on the same day the 13 disc was added to Minecraft. And during mid to late August of that year, the story was shaped and spread into Herobrine over 4chan and the Minecraft forum. Allegedly, Herobrine was Notch's deceased brother taking the form of the then default Steve skin but with white eyes. He would haunt the player, grief them and their world, and build his own strange monuments of sorts. In my opinion, one of the biggest events in the Herobrine lore was the infamous Brocraft stream. A player, Copeland, was met with Herobrine at 20 minutes and 45 seconds into the livestream. He ran out of the Minecraft house and ended the stream soon after. If you couldn't tell, this was a hoax since he's just a retextured painting, giving him that 2D effect. There was actually a lot more that happened involving the stream, but that's just the basics. And from there, Herobrine's popularity surged. I remember watching a video by someone on YouTube called... what was his name? It was... I think it was... Jamuk? Or... Jamuk. I think it's Jamuk. Yeah, he made a video titled Herobrine Who Is He? But I think it's been changed to Who Is Herobrine? I think, or maybe it was always Who Is Herobrine. I'm not really sure, but man, that video scared the hell out of me when I first saw it. I believed it. I mean, how could you not? The proof was right there, right? The eeriness of the text on screen, the screenshots, and accompanying music sent shivers down my spine. The late 2000s and early 2010s were such a great time for video game and internet mysteries and horror. I'll leave that video and a re-upload by Everdeen99 with the original audio in it in the description. Funnily enough, Notch would even acknowledge Herobrine by stating in patch notes that he was removed, which became a running gag for the team, or a purposeful inclusion, who knows. And Herobrine's even seen in official art for the game. Rumors on how to summon him and mods to actually do it sprouted up as his popularity skyrocketed too. And yeah, but what does he actually do? He seems to be a virus of sorts that messes with the player, their Minecraft world, and was able to hack into that player's Minecraft forum account. As far as beating it goes, it's a virus. With enough malware protection and resetting of things, he's as good as gone. But if he is Notch's dead brother, then we have a bit of haunting going on too, but he can't manifest in the real world and just fucks with your Minecraft game and forum account. You can simply not use that stuff or get new ones and you've won. The "it's on a computer, it's not real" argument trumps all other arguments. And also, in a morbid kind of way, if it is Notch's deceased brother, you've also beaten him because, well, he's dead. So, yeah. Good job. Next up, we have another video game related creepypasta, Lavender Town Syndrome, another absolute classic. Honestly, I feel like Pokemon Creepypastas could just get their own video. But anyway, this syndrome refers to the 7 to 12-year-old children in Japan who became ill and developed conditions, with around 200 of them taking their lives back on February 27th, 1996, shortly after the release of the first Pokemon games, Red and Green. The children that took their lives did so through hanging or jumping from a height. The ones that didn't developed severe headaches and acted irrationally for the most part. It's thought that the reason for this was because of those children reaching Lavender Town in the games. Apparently, the music that's played in the town has extremely high frequencies that only children and young teenagers can hear. Because of this, mass hysteria was caused, and in all other versions of the game, the music was set to a lower frequency. Since that change, no cases of the syndrome affecting a child have surfaced. A video appearing in 2010 even showed the audio waves of Lavender Town in the original games. What was found was the Lavender Town ghost and a bunch of unknown. The unknown were aligned to spell out the following sentence: "Get out." This is all strange considering that unknown first appeared in Generation 2 of Pokemon, which was Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Whether you believe in the tale or not doesn't take away from how disturbing the story really is. The early Pokemon games have so many haunting urban legends and creepypastas attached to them. It's just something about the pixelated older designs, how everything is displayed, and the oddities of everything that makes people's minds wander. And I'm here to tell you that you could definitely beat the Lavender Town syndrome. First of all, if you're over the age of 12 or so, you'll have won since the frequencies can't hurt you. Keeping the young safe would be a top priority too. Make sure you keep them away from the original games. Luckily for us Westerners, the games were released exclusively in Japan. So if your children or any young person wants a Pokemon game, just make sure they don't want the original Red and Green, which is already pretty hard to get your hands on anyway. Make sure they stay away from the original Lavender Town theme too. That would be the only way to beat it, by staying away from the games, more importantly the song itself, and by being lucky enough to be old enough for the high frequencies to not affect you. And in all honesty, really, someone could hijack a television or radio broadcast, maybe even a PA system, and play the song, harming so many people. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and hey, if you are young and feeling brave, I'll have a link to a rip of the original song linked in the description, if you dare to listen to it. Up next, we have the last video game creepypasta of the video, Polybius. This urban legend is about a rare arcade game released in 1981 created by a company called Sinneslöschen, which is German for sense deletion. This game was supposedly a mix between a shoot 'em up and a puzzle game that was found in a few suburbs of Portland, Oregon. An arcade owner who had the machine stated that men wearing black suits would often come to collect records and data from the game. This led to people believing that the game was some sort of government test or experiment full of subliminal messaging. It was alluring, to say the least. Players would wait in huge lines to play the game, with those players reporting to hear a woman crying and seeing disturbing faces in the corner of their eyes, all while playing the game. Players would also experience a range of side effects like nausea, headaches, blackouts, amnesia, and nightmares, with some even taking their own lives, ceasing playing video games, and even becoming anti-video game activists, with at least one person actually doing that. The game was removed from arcades after a month of implementation, but one showed back up in 1998 and then quickly vanished. Recreations of the game have been made, and I'll link one in the description, but the original ROM has yet to be found. Despite all of that, with the right amount of knowledge and smarts, you can definitely beat Polybius. Knowing what you know now about it, if you ever see the arcade machine, you know not to touch it. Stay well away from it. Even if you don't know about the side effects associated with Polybius, if you were in an arcade and you saw people being negatively affected after playing a game and talking about seeing things mid-game, why would you even take your chances with it? Be smart and stay well away from the game, which would be very easy to do right now in our current age, considering that the machines haven't resurfaced since the 90s. And honestly, probably won't ever resurface, assuming they actually existed in the first place. Now from here, I wanted to talk about Red Mist, yet another creepypasta that kept me up at night as a kid. It's a disturbing and horrific SpongeBob episode of the same name that supposedly existed and concludes with Squidward taking his own life with a gun. The episode, created by the now imprisoned Scottish animator Andrew Skinner, is set up like a regular SpongeBob episode but devolves into something else entirely, very quickly. Squidward tries to play his clarinet but is interrupted by SpongeBob and Patrick playing around, and a salesman. The salesman knocks at Squidward's door again and tells him that the red mist is coming. Without any thought, Squidward goes back to playing his clarinet and yelling at SpongeBob and Patrick and making them cry. Things glitch out and Squidward's eyes change to a realistic look with red mist enveloping them. The audio cuts except for a few clicks and whistles. Squidward is then seen performing a clarinet solo in a theater with everyone booing him, and then he walks home for 3 minutes and 50 seconds with nothing else going on. He gets home and sobs quietly as other sounds, distortions, and cuts overpower his sobbing. Eventually, the sobbing gets louder and Squidward begins crying blood. Things get more intense and build up to Squidward holding a gun to his mouth and pulling the trigger. Squidward's lifeless body is shown while presumably the salesman states,
"The red mist is coming."
SpongeBob's creator, Steven Hillenburg, was furious about this episode and started an investigation into finding out what it was and who made it, but nothing came of it at the time. There was even a deceased child shown in the video, but they weren't identified. Now, don't get me wrong, the concept behind this is disturbing, but the execution is just so goofy. I don't know why I was even scared of this as a kid. You were probably scared of this too and now feel silly for feeling that way, like me too, right? Either way, you could definitely beat the red mist. How? There's a story out there of workers at Nickelodeon watching the episode to figure out what it was. Some of them recoiled and one of the interns couldn't take it anymore and promptly exited the room. The amount of distress when shown something like this would have been immense for those in the story, so much so that it could have left some of them with some sort of psychological damage or strain. For something like this, once things feel out of place, strange, or illegal, stopping the video and handing it over to the proper authorities would save you from witnessing something you'll never forget. However, if you bear witness to the video, you should confide in others, get a psych evaluation, or even see a therapist if you feel yourself dipping, whether that's at work or outside of work. You wouldn't want the red mist to come for you, and if you don't know what red mist is, maybe that's for the better. Either way, in canon, the sicko behind the episode, Andrew Skinner, was arrested and imprisoned, so all in all, red mist is beaten. The episode was made by him to be the first episode of Season 4, and whether you believe all of this is up for you to decide. The Creepypasta Land article about this episode linked in the description has a link to the YouTube upload of Red Mist if you wanted to watch it too. Viewers' discretion is advised. But what I can say for certain is that the Season 12 episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, SpongeBob in Random Land, released in 2019, referenced Red Mist as that Squidward is an alternate universe version of the original who lives behind one of the doors in Random Land. This episode was amended and Red Mist was edited out. However, the 2020 episode, A Place for Pets, has a shot of Squidward facing the camera while frowning with 2 red cups stuck in his eye sockets that looks a bit like the Red Mist Squidward. The former is definitely a reference to Red Mist, with Adam Paloyan and Vincent Walker, 2 creatives working on the show, confirming it. The latter, however, may just be a coincidence. For our last creepypasta entity, we have Eyeless Jack, the man-eating serial killer who loves eating human organs. As the story goes, a man named Mitch moves in with his brother Edwin after his house is foreclosed. During a night a week after the move-in, Mitch awakes to find a large cut on his stomach. He goes to the hospital and is told that his left kidney was removed in his sleep. That night, Mitch is awakened by Eyeless Jack looking at him. He could see him wearing a blue mask with black liquid dripping from his empty eye sockets behind the mask. Mitch manages to grab his camera and takes a photo of Jack before being attacked, flees, trips over in the woods, and passes out. He awakes in the hospital and it's revealed to him that his brother, Edwin, was killed the night prior. Mitch and his parents went to collect his belongings from the house, and when they arrived, they were met with Edwin's corpse and Mitch's kidney lying beside him with a bite taken out of it, covered in a black substance. Ooh, spooky. This guy may be stealthy, but you could definitely beat him. For starters, physically, he doesn't seem to pose too much of a threat as he's a pretty skinny individual. He may be crafty with a knife too, but things can be solved in the same ways I described while taking a look at Jeff the Killer. A guy with a knife doesn't stand much of a chance against a gun, let alone a few people with guns or even a few people armed with knives too. However, Jack might be paranormal in some way, which might explain his stealth capabilities, but even so, with enough resources and manpower, you can beat him. You don't even have to get that creative, and just like with Jeff the Killer, local authorities should eventually be able to track him down and put a stop to things too. That last entry was a bit short, but now we're at the part of the video where we rate each entity from least to most powerful because it's fun. And to start us off, as our least most powerful entity, we have Red Mist. That might be a bit controversial, but the fact that it's just a disturbing SpongeBob SquarePants episode that can really weigh on your consciousness as it did with the employees that viewed it, and myself, and yourselves if it scared you as a kid, there's really not much else to it. It's easily beaten since it doesn't manifest in the real world, and the same can be said for Herobrine. In Minecraft, he's a powerful virus-like entity that can ruin your experience, and he can even tamper with your Minecraft forum account. But outside of that, he can't touch you in the physical world, so haha, you win. And then from there, I decided to put Eyeless Jack, our first real-world entity. He can kill you if he takes enough of your organs or if he feels like just getting it done, but can be taken out with something ranged, with that being one of many ways you could beat him. However, his paranormal status is up for debate. A killer that ranks higher here is Jeff the Killer. He gets the one-up because of his psychopathic and ruthless behavior that makes him a serial killer despite being similar to Eyeless Jack. And from there, we have Polybius due to its psychological capabilities and what it could do. If released onto the public in large numbers, it could really disrupt and whittle down a large population. The same can be said for the Lavender Town Syndrome. It gets the one-up here because of how it can be implemented to harm people. Since it's a song pitched to a damaging frequency, it could be nefariously used over the radio, television, internet, PA systems, etc., and really damage our future generation. Which leaves us with the most powerful entity in this video, Ben Drowned. Not only is it a paranormal creature being the soul of a kid drowned in a ritual, but the fact that it can tamper with electronics and cause harm to the human conscience would give it endless amounts of power if it plays its cards right or it isn't stopped. As we know from the extended story, he's definitely given a new body and that seems to be the end of that. But there are ways to definitely beat him before things got to that stage, just like how there are ways to definitely beat the other entities. And with that, this has been Creepypasta entities you could definitely beat. I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on what was discussed? Let everyone know in the comments section. Would you actually lose instead? I'm curious to know. Like, subscribe, and check out my second channel Soda Jump if you want to see more from me. And a big thank you again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this video. They've been an incredible sponsor, so if you want to start your claim, use the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen. And as always, we can't forget the shout out to my lovely patrons and YouTube members. And a big shout out to the highest tier Patreon members, Joel Matthew Colgrove and La Creatura. Thank you both for your continued contributions and thank you to everyone else as well. You guys are absolute legends. Stay tuned for more content like this. Everything talked about is in the description if you want to further look into them, and I'll catch ya in the next one.